What's up, y'all? It's your boy Vinnie-Dangerous, and I'm back with another installment of Dangerous Minds, the first of 4 list episodes that will be rounding off season 2 of the Dangerous Minds series. I really appreciate everybody for tuning in and the people that have been participating in the Facebook discussion group, conversations that help round off these lists, help me come up with the content that will be ending season 2. So if you haven't already joined the group or you would like to participate, the link will be in the description below. But let's go ahead and get things started. This episode will be the first list of 4, and it is the most disappointing albums, my most disappointing albums of 2017. So before I get started, I just want to let y'all know that these albums that are on this list are not necessarily bad, at least not, you may have a certain opinion on them. I'm not calling them the worst albums of this year. That may be a future list. If you want that, please comment below or join the Facebook discussion in the group. Again, the link will be in the description. But these are albums that I went into like I was a fan, and I, got wind of this person, or maybe I was a fan for a while, heard they coming out with a new album, put it in, and by the end of it I thought, well, that was a letdown. Yeah. That's the feeling that I got. I know everybody watching this has experienced that, if not with an album, but with something in life that you went into it with a certain type of expectation and you kind of left feeling disappointed. Hence the title of this video. So before I get started, I would like to do some honorable mentions. I put the list in front of me on my computer screen, so if you see me jot my eyes to the side a little bit, it's because I'm trying to reference the list, making sure that I get all my points across. So the first honorable mention album will be Big Sean's I Decided. I know that might be a controversial entry, because a lot of people like this album, and I can honestly say I enjoyed it, but I was just expecting a little bit more. So everybody knows Big Sean's trajectory has been kind of up and down. First album was cool, Finally Famous. So are the mixtapes before it. Then you had the terrible Hall of Fame album that threatened to end his whole career. But then he bounced back with his best album to date, Dark Sky Paradise. And I was expecting something along that quality, maybe if not better, around the same quality of that album. And I just don't feel like I got it from this album. I know Big Sean was looking to kind of go a little bit more, personal and a little bit more emotional. But I just think in that regard, he missed out on some memorable tracks. I mean, he got the song with M, he's got song Moves, and there was the other single, and I can't remember it. And the fact that I cannot remember that album should tell you that album really didn't have the staying power that I feel like his last album, Dark Sky Paradise, had. And the fact that his 2088 collab with Jenaya Eco ended up on my best albums of 2016 list, it just kind of felt like I had a lot of expectation going into that album, and it just kind of failed to deliver for me. But it was still a great album, just not what I expected. That's why it's not on the official list. It's just on the honorable mentions. The other album, and it kind of hurts me to even include this one in the video at all, but I just had to, because TPain's Oblivion. And if people follow me on social media, they knew I was excited for this album. Earlier in this series, I put an album out about why TPain deserves more credit. I'm a big fan of TPain. So when he announced that after 6 years, we were finally gonna get a new TPain album, I was super excited. And when I finally got done with it, with the Big Sean album, it's not a bad album, but I was just expecting a little bit more. There's plenty of tracks on there that are great, that give me that sense of new TPain, that kind of elevates his style into the modern era of how music is done, kind of taking what people have taken from him and using their twist on it, and modernizing his sound that he donated to them, if that makes sense. But the problem with the album to me is the fact that is nothing new, and it's kind of, he went from being cutting edge like he was with his classic album 3 Rings. Yes, I call it a classic. You can fight me for it, I don't care. You know, there was a lot of stuff on that album that nobody was doing. Nobody did before that album, and nobody did since that album. There's a lot of things about that album that is just so original, like his other previous works, but I feel like that album really encapsulated everything I loved about T-Pain. And, you know, for the sake of hitting like top 40, maybe top 40 success with the pop records, you know, there's a lot of songs that the writing is goofy to the point where it's not even like, you know, entertaining. Like, T-Pain's known for that. He's funny, witty with a lot of his lyrics, but I feel like a lot of the album was a little, you know, dry to me. It didn't really hit. Still a lot that's great about it, and I'm still bumping it, but there's a lot that, you know, I skip over, I did not connect with, and I just kind of was going into it with a certain level of expectation that just wasn't reached for me. But with that out of the way, I'm gonna go into the proper list. Number 10, Future, and I put both of his albums from this year, Hendrix and Future. Now, I put this at the very bottom because I don't know why I had any type of expectation for anything Future does at this point. He, like a lot of the people you're gonna hear on this list, are hit and miss, like with Big Sean. But his is way more misses than hits for me. He went on that phenomenal run of mixtapes that were just like hitting, that, you know, me personally felt like a lot of them were overrated. But I saw the appeal for them. But with these 2 albums, I do not see the appeal at all. Future was the same song on repeat for 60 to 70 minutes. It's literally the exact same shit over and over again. But Hendrix is worse, because Hendrix is his attempt to doing an R&B, sexy, introspective album, and it falls flat on its fucking face. At least Future, as redundant as it is, you come to expect that from Future. But with this album, I mean with the Hendrix album, it was just bad. The biggest eyesore on the track list is, or earsore, is the collaboration with Rihanna. Well, Rihanna, it sounds like a Rihanna song that Future just happened to hop on. And she sounds great, the instrumental sounds great, but Future just sounds so out of place. And that's what it feels like on a lot of these records. So that's why I put that as number 10. Future, the album gave me what I was expecting, just not as exciting. And Hendrix was just completely way off. I know I hate that one album is hated because it's exactly what you expect with just less of the excitement, and then the other one is him trying something new and failing, because we always discourage people from doing something different. But in this case, it's tried and it's failed, and he just need to go back to the drawing board on this one. The next album, number 9, is Freddy and Jadakiss. I mean, Fabulous and Jadakiss's Freddy versus Jason album. Not really much to say about it. It just came out from the time of this recording. But just listening to it, one of the biggest things about it that I was actually excited about when I heard about the announcement, I love Jada, I love Fab. You know, like I said with Future, they gave me exactly what I was expecting, but it's nothing memorable, nothing exciting. And Fab, as much as I love Fab, and Fab is one of the few guys from his era that can, you know, hang, I guess you could say, with the newer generation. And he is, sorry, I gotta do something real quick with the sound. He is the one guy that can take the newer stuff, make it his own. Like, he's able to evolve his style. And the one thing I did not like about this project is that when he's paired off with somebody, you know, in this case Jadakiss, that is from his era, he sounds dated. And I feel like a lot of these songs, a lot of their flows, even though it's a lot of witty stuff, it's nothing that sticks to mind because it sounds so dated. Like, it's the old stuff, but at the same time, it just doesn't come off like appealing in this new age. Like, you know, I don't want Jada and Fab to change, but if they're gonna do what they've been doing, they need to kind of polish it up a little bit. So that's how I felt about that one. Number 8 Now I hate if I say this wrong, but Khalid, the American Teen album. You also know him from the Location track, and because of that, you know, send me your location. You know that song. If it wasn't for that song, I wouldn't have even really been that excited to check this album out, because it was the only single that I heard from the album before the album dropped, and I went into it expecting that kind of sound to continue, and the fact that that's the only song that I liked on the whole track list should tell you a lot. The Young, Broken, Dumb track is dumb. And there's just really nothing else about the album that is appealing. Like, at this point, I do not see the hype. I really hope that maybe he can recapture that magic that was on Location, because the rest of this album is just horrible. But I will be looking forward to whatever else he comes out with. Number 7, XXXTentacion 17. This might be another controversial entry, just for the fact that a lot of people that I spoke to actually like this album. And when I put the album in, I could not see it. Now, I know what you're thinking. I shitted on this guy a little bit on the review of the freshman cover of this year. He's one of the freshman 2017 cover, rappers. And the reason why I went into it with some type of expectation, because at some point I actually found myself liking some of his stuff. Look at Me, as dumb and as idiotic as it is, it was catchy, it was appealing, so it made me give him a chance. Other songs like Sippin' Tea in Your Hood, what's the song? It's like Don't Test Me. There's a few others that kind of caught my ear, and I thought, okay, let me check this dude out. Let me see what he about. And I heard the album, and it sounds like for the whole track, all the tracks, he sounds like he's on the verge of crying. It's a lot of, him trying to convey these emotions that are just not coming across on these lyrics. And after the first song, I think it's called Jocelyn's Flowers, that's the only song on there that actually had any type of appeal for me. And it's so short. And that's what the problem with a lot of these tracks are. They're so short, over in like a minute or 2 minutes, and then they're easily forgotten. And I couldn't get through the whole project in one sitting. I sat down to listen to the whole thing just so I can make sure I wasn't missing anything. And I wasn't missing anything. There wasn't really much there for me to pull from. The next album, Jenaya Eco Trip. My problem with this album is that it massively exposed Jenaya Eco for the fact that her style is pretty one-dimensional, and it kind of sucked when I found out that she was putting out this album, because her album came out the same day as Rhapsody's album, and I actually had to take a trip that day. So I was driving 2 hours, drive back 2 hours, so it gave me a perfect amount of time to listen to this album. I think I was actually going to go visit my dad in Fayetteville, and when I listened to it, I was just like, wow, this album sounds just like what I said about the Future album. It sounds like the same song over and over again. Her style doesn't really have a lot of versatility. So her in small doses, like the EPs that she put out, and even the album that she put out, even though it was a little redundant, it at least was in the right length that I could enjoy it and it wouldn't be an issue. But this album is about 24, 25 songs deep, and after you get to the halfway point, I'm like, I can't hear your whispery, mundane voice where you talk about love and drugs and all this other stuff. There's a couple songs in there where she changes the formula, like a couple songs with Big Sean that sound a little different. The song with Brandy I love to death, but like 3 songs, maybe like 4 or 5 songs in 25 tracks that really stand out is not a good look. So I think the biggest problem with this project was probably the length. It's not like it's some bad album or these are bad songs, but the length really killed it for me. Number 5, sorry, I'm tripping. ASAP Mob and ASAP Ferg's albums, the Kazi Tapes 2 and Still Striving. The problem I have with the ASAP Mob as a whole, and this really reflects on these albums, is that one, the ASAP Mob really only has 2 talented artists on there. And from the people that I've heard, like ASAP 12, ASAP Nav, I think, I really don't remember all of them. Ferg and Rocky are the only 2 that are really worth listening to. And the Kazi Tapes show, like the first Kazi tape was bad, but at least that one had a couple memorable tracks. Even ASAP Rocky and ASAP Ferg couldn't lift this one up. And I lumped this in with Still Striving because I feel like it also reflects in Ferg. And I think, the desire to chase mainstream appeal has hurt ASAP Ferg's music. His first album was a breath of fresh air. I really went into that one with no expectations and walked away feeling like very pleased, a big fan of his music, because he had a couple big singles like the track with Rocky Shopper Ranks. He had the don't even remember the name of the song. It's the big remix posse track that they did. Somebody let me know in the comment section, because it's been a while. But those songs and then the rest of the album is really dope. But both of these albums, with the exception of the song of, what's that song called? All right, I'm about to pull up the track list. It's the song Plain Jane. Yeah, Plain Jane was the only song. Maybe a couple others, like the song with Cameron, and even the track with Lil Yachty was pretty decent. But for the most part, I wasn't really a fan of his album or the Kazi Tapes. Let me get back to my list. Number 4, Heartbreak on a Full Moon. Basically take everything that I said about Jenaya Eco's album, put that on Chris Brown's. It's the same song for 45 tracks this time. And unlike Jenaya Eco's, there was no standouts on this album. I don't care what nobody says. Maybe because Privacy and all the other singles I'd heard already a bunch of times, so it really didn't stick out to me. But this album was just a total waste of time. Chris Brown trimmed that shit down to 10 of the best tracks. It kind of felt like you recorded all these songs with this album and said that you could not pick a good song. Pick out the best songs, so you decided to just throw them all out there and see what sticks. Did not like this album. It was boring. It was repetitive, it was boring, it was unnecessary, and it disappointed me heavily. Because I like Chris Brown, but his latest outputs, have been very disappointing and very deflating. And I hope at some point he can get back to what people actually like about his music. Number 3, Amine, Good For You. One of the only 2 artists that I thought actually had a snowball's chance in hell of really making an impact in the game. So I was excited for his album, especially after the song he put out with Charlie Wilson that's on the album. It's a very bland album to me though. Like, it has songs like Spice Girls, you got the song with Offset, and like the song with Charlie Wilson I spoke about. Those songs stick out, but there's not enough. And I feel like the rest of it, like even he sounds unenthusiastic through this whole album. It makes it hard for anybody to care about what you're doing, what you're talking about, because you sound like you don't even care. So it disappointed me. I still got hope for the dude, but it was a massive letdown, especially considering this, the song with Charlie Wilson, the song Caroline. Those songs really stuck out, but when it came time to deliver on the full project, it just didn't. Number 2, True to Self by Bryson Tiller. Overall, I feel like it was an okay album. It was kind of like repeat the formula from the last album, but there was just no standout tracks to me. I don't know, his laid back demeanor kind of just really took over this album to the point where I was bored. There's nothing memorable about this album. It's nothing that stands out like the last one that had Don't and Save Her For Me or something like that. You know, there was nothing really on this album that stood out, and you know, I was really excited because I really enjoyed the last album before that. So going into this one, it was just like I never returned back to it, and I really don't think I will. And number one, Shine by Wale. Now, this was the album that really inspired this list. Like, I rewrote this album. I rewrote this list. I put them in different, you know, levels, rounded it off, took some off, put some on. But this album was always at the top. Shine by Wale is by far his worst album. And I am not ashamed to say that. It's not hyperbole. This is his worst album. And I'm going to tell you why. It's nothing about this album that is memorable. The song that Lil Wayne, with Lil Wayne, is one of the worst tracks that I've ever heard either of them do. Thank God is okay. Scarface, Rosie, Gotti is dumb. I don't even know where the hell that came from. And then the songs like Fashion Week, My Love, and his terrible singing on that one. CC White, Fish and Grits, Mathematics. There's literally not a good song on this album except for when you get to My PYT. And that song is only passable. It just looks good. It sounds good compared to the rest of the albums. And I'm a big fan of Wale. I've been a big fan. Even when people have clowned his music, clowned certain albums, like I feel like the album About Nothing is underrated. I feel like the album before that, I think it's called The Shining. I think that's underrated as hell. And I feel like his discography as a whole deserves a lot more appreciation than what it gets. But this album right here was definitely a step in the wrong direction. And I will not be returning to any of these songs. And out of all of the albums that I just talked about, that was my most disappointing album of 2017. I appreciate y'all tuning in. Tune in next week as I give you list number 2. Still haven't decided which one. If you want to be a part of the discussion, please go to the Facebook discussion group or leave your suggestions in the comment section below. Please subscribe to the channel and support the Patreon site. Follow the Instagram page. Tune in next week and make sure you keep this channel alive for season 3. This has been your boy Vinnie-Dangerous. See you next time. Much love.
Don't worry about it. Y'all promised this is something they ain't heard before. I'm all about giving the people something a little different. Hi-hats.